I've read a number of studies on motivation, and the ones I've found most convincing have isolated 4 main factors as the most powerful human motivators. I'll go through them one by one, and I urge you to listen to them carefully. Think about how you can put them to use to help you to accomplish your goals. And if you're in a managerial or leadership position, think also about how you can use them to help motivate the people you're supervising. These are the real factors that make people get off their behinds and do things. These are what works when wanting to just isn't enough. These are the true reasons for believing something is worth doing and then for actually doing it. The first great motivator is recognition from peers. When soldiers in wartime give up their lives during combat, why do they do it? Is it because of patriotism or belief in the cause they're fighting for, or fear of court-martial if they do otherwise? Perhaps all those things play a part, but extensive research has shown that what really motivates a soldier to fight well in combat is the desire for the respect of the man who's fighting right beside him. This is much more important than medals or other forms of public recognition, which in the confusion of wartime are often given to the wrong people anyway. And what motivates soldiers in combat is only an extreme version of what motivates salesmen on the floor of a car dealership, or students in a classroom, or a team of lawyers trying to win a case. I don't know if this is still done, but for many years the players in the National Football League used to select their own all-star team at the end of each season. I was always interested and rather amused by the differences between the players' selections and the all-star team picked by the fans or sports writers. And I'm also certain that the honor of being selected by one's fellow players meant a lot more than any sort of recognition from someone sitting up in the grandstand with a hot dog in his mouth. Quite simply, recognition from peers is a truly powerful motivating force in any human activity. The second important motivator is recognition from respected experts or authorities. I can tell you that in my own life, this has been an extremely important factor. Mr. Schoaf, whom I mentioned a moment ago, was someone that I respected from the first moment I was introduced to him, and he was also someone whose respect I desperately wanted to earn. Has there been someone like that in your life, or is there such a person in your life right now? It's important to realize that a respected expert doesn't have to be a person who's known far and wide throughout the world. You are the one who establishes the qualifications, though very often people who you find impressive will be equally impressive to others. Once you've met such a person, or even if you've seen them from a distance or perhaps read an article about them in the paper, don't hesitate to politely approach them and introduce yourself. Unless you happen to catch them at a particularly difficult moment, most successful people are eager to help others and to pass on what they've learned. Sure, I was apprehensive about meeting Mr. Schoaf when I first saw him, but I shuddered to think what my life would be like if I hadn't done it. From a motivational point of view, the great thing about establishing a relationship with a mentor is that you eventually become so close to that person that you can almost hear them advising you, even when they're not really there. Earl Schoaf passed on years ago. He died suddenly at the age of only 49, but I still feel like he's talking to me every day. I still feel also that I want to earn his approval and respect. I think it will always be that way. Family is the third great motivator, and in many ways it's really the most powerful. Although the approval of peers and experts may be most important in your career, in your life as a whole, nothing can compare with the importance of your family. An experience I had a number of years ago is a good illustration of that principle. I had just finished giving a talk before a group of entrepreneurs up in Minneapolis when a young man approached me and asked me for some advice about achieving financial success. As I always do when asked for that sort of advice, I began with a couple of standard, straightforward questions. The first one was, how much money would you like to make annually? When I ask this question, I want to see whether the person has given enough thought to his goals so that he can come up with a specific figure. That's a much better sign than someone who just says, I want to make a whole lot. But this fellow was even more specific and focused than I could possibly have expected. I need to make at least $250,000 a year for the next 10 years, he said without a second's hesitation. And why do you want to make that amount? I now inquired. This was another standard question of mine, and once again he answered immediately. Mr. Rohn, he said, 10 years from now, when my kids are old enough to enjoy it, I want to take my family on a trip around the world that they'll remember all their lives. The trip itself will last for 12 full months, with no expenses spared. And in order to save enough money to make it happen, I will need an annual income of $250,000 for the next decade. There were literally tears in his eyes as he said this, and although I haven't heard from him since then, I have no doubt that he'll achieve his goal. In my mind's eye, I could picture him over the coming years working long hours, meeting deadlines, overcoming obstacles, doing everything it takes to be successful today, and doing it gladly. After all, he was motivated by something more than just simple desire for financial success and the material rewards that come with it. This man was working because he desired to give his wife and children a lifetime's worth of priceless memories. And if that isn't a reason to believe, I don't know what is. A person who can feel that level of emotion for other human beings is truly blessed. And a family who can have that sort of man for a father is truly blessed as well. The fourth and last achievement motivating factor I want to mention is closely related to the desire to benefit your family. In fact, you could say it's a desire to benefit the whole family of man. Let's call it the impulse toward benevolence, toward sharing your wealth and wisdom with the world. I'm fond of a story about Andrew Carnegie, the Scottish immigrant who founded the United States Steel Company in the early years of this century. When Carnegie died, a yellow sheet of paper was found in his desk on which he'd written a note to himself when he was still in his 20s. This note set forth the main goal of his life. It read, "I'm going to spend the first half of my life accumulating money, and I'm going to spend the last half of my life giving it all away." Did this impulse toward benevolence provide to be a strong motivator for success? Well, during his lifetime, Carnegie's fortune was estimated at $450 million, the equivalent of $4.5 billion today. And he did have the joy of giving it away. In addition to building Carnegie Hall in New York City, he founded libraries in hundreds of small towns all across America and participated in dozens of other philanthropic activities as well. When we look at the four important motivators I've just discussed, what do we really see? The thing that I immediately notice is that they all involve other people, whether it's peers, mentors, family members, or simply fellow members of the human race. It's ironic, isn't it? In order to be successful, you need this very internal, very personal, very unique thing called strong character. But in order to acquire that innermost quality and set it to work, you need people other than yourself as reasons to believe. Maybe that's not true if you're the toughest man on earth. Maybe then you can do whatever needs to be done just because you set your mind to do it. The thing is, though, there's only one toughest man on earth at any one time, and I'm not the one. And I'm kind of glad about that too, because needing and working for other people is really what's made my life worthwhile. And I'm sure you feel the same way.